If someone told you that a human being is born with 270 bones, about 30% more bones than you, along with the ability to heal without leaving a scar, the reflex to swim in water without ever taking a swimming lesson, and even the power to chemically influence adult aggression through nothing more than a smell, you would probably think of a mutant from a sci-fi movie. And yet, that being exists. And once, that being was you. When we look at a human newborn, the first impression is almost always the same: a completely harmless, fragile little creature, entirely dependent on us to survive. It feels like it is born only halfway finished. And that is true, especially when you compare it to what nature is capable of. Take the great white shark, for example. Its young are born fully formed, independent, and already equipped with teeth. From the very first second, they know how to hunt, and they swim away from their mother as fast as they can to avoid being eaten. Compared with that, the human baby looks like it completely lost the evolutionary game. But in reality, babies hide countless secrets, incredible mechanisms that are absolutely worth a closer look. Since it is not born with sharp fangs like a shark to defend itself, the human baby developed a much subtler strategy. A kind of invisible control, almost imperceptible, one that acts directly on your brain. And it all starts right here, on its head. Infants secrete a particular molecule in large amounts from their scalp, hexadecanal, also called cetylaldehyde. Just a simple chemical compound, but with an absolutely fascinating effect. Without you even noticing it, this smell can deeply influence your behavior. Researchers at the Weizmann Institute have shown that smelling this molecule instantly calms aggression in men, while producing the opposite effect in women, strongly increasing both aggression and protective instinct. In that way, it creates a kind of social protective shield around the child. In one experiment, volunteers were exposed to this molecule while playing frustrating video games, and the results were striking. Women became more reactive, more aggressive toward their opponents, while men, on the other hand, calmed down and made more peaceful choices. Its neurological impact is complex. This molecule acts directly on the brain by modifying the connections between the areas involved in social decision-making and emotional regulation. In women, it particularly activates the angular gyrus, while reducing coordination with key emotional control regions. The result: reactions become faster, more intense, with greater aggression in certain situations. In men, it is exactly the opposite. Hexadecanal strengthens the connections between those same brain regions, improving impulse control and reducing aggressive behavior. So behind their cute, lovable faces, babies chemically prepare their mothers to go completely insane on you the second you mess up. But this chemical hack is not the only security system nature installed in babies. To survive in our world without breaking at the slightest impact, their entire body had to be modified, starting with a structure you would think would be solid: their own skeleton. At birth, a newborn skeleton has almost nothing in common with an adult's. Their skull is made of several separate bones, linked by soft areas called sutures and fontanelles. This remarkable structure allows the head to deform slightly so it can pass through the mother's pelvis during birth. And that is only the beginning. A baby is born with around 270 bones, compared with 206 in an adult. Over time, some of them fuse together, especially in the skull and spine, almost giving the impression that the baby is losing bones as it grows. But in some places, it gets even more surprising. Take the knee, for example. At birth, the kneecap is not a hard bone, but a soft, almost sponge-like piece of cartilage. As a result, it is extremely shock-resistant, perfectly suited for falls and crawling on all fours. It only begins to harden between ages 3 and 5 and becomes fully bony by adolescence. The same logic applies to the wrists and ankles, and despite this apparent fragility, babies have an impressive ability. They heal better than we do. Their healing process is different, with a much weaker inflammatory phase. As a result, wounds often leave fewer marks. Their tissues, whether skin, heart tissue, or even bone, regenerate more efficiently thanks to extremely rapid cell division. Meanwhile, their brain is going to keep growing a lot after birth. It literally doubles in size during the first year, and the open fontanelles leave exactly the room needed for that explosive growth. In reality, the human baby is not born completely finished. It comes into the world still in an immature state, for one simple reason. If its brain kept developing longer in the womb, its head would become too large to allow birth. So, nature made a choice. And that brain, still under construction, hides an absolutely astonishing ability. Because from the very first days of life, it is already capable of feats that most adults have completely lost. From birth, a baby's brain can perceive the full range of roughly 800 phonemes used in every spoken language on Earth. These are sounds that an adult may sometimes find impossible to distinguish, but that are perfectly audible to a baby. In other words, at the beginning of life, a baby is potentially capable of learning any of the world's 7,000 languages simply by being exposed to it. And what makes that ability even more impressive is that it does not necessarily depend on how much speech the baby hears. In some cultures, such as on the island of Malakula, where people speak relatively little to infants despite a multilingual environment, babies develop language just as effectively as they do in much chattier settings. They vocalize, experiment, and end up mastering their mother tongue with astonishing ease. And that is exactly why early exposure to multiple languages is so powerful. It strengthens memory, improves concentration, and offers a lasting advantage for cognitive development. As for us, researchers are still trying to understand why this ability declines so much in adulthood. But all this linguistic genius and adaptability hides a total innocence. A baby may understand the world around it, but it has no idea what could harm it. The idea of danger simply is not part of its original programming. This experiment was conducted under extremely strict safety conditions, using trained, non-venomous snakes that are used to human contact. And as you can see, the result is quite surprising. The babies show no signs of panic, hesitation, or distress. In fact, some completely ignore the snake and just keep playing, while others get closer out of pure curiosity, even reaching out to touch its body or face, which is kind of unexpected. Because we often assume that fear of snakes is something we're born with, but in humans, that's not really the case. At birth, the only real fear responses seem to be linked to very basic threats, the sensation of falling or a sudden loud noise. Everything else, fear of snakes, spiders, and so on, is something we learn over time, through experience, through conditioning, and most importantly, by watching others. Because when a baby encounters something unfamiliar, the first thing they do is look at their parent. And if that parent reacts with fear, the baby quickly understands that something is wrong and may adopt that same reaction. Kind of like this. Well, some babies are more stubborn than others, but you get the idea. If their parents were in the room, their reactions would probably look very different, with a few tears added to the mix. And this mechanism actually makes a lot of sense. It helps children avoid real dangers, like fire, heights, or certain animals. But it also comes with a downside, because that same system can pass on fears that aren't necessarily tied to real danger anymore, like fear of judgment, failure, or rejection. Still, even though babies have to learn most of the dangers around them, they're not completely defenseless. From the very moments of life, their bodies already come equipped with a whole set of automatic survival reflexes. This strange little movement is called the Moro reflex. It's an archaic reflex, present from fetal life and during the first few months after birth. When a baby experiences a sudden noise, or when their head tilts slightly backward, they instantly throw their arms and legs outward, then pull them back in. It's automatic, almost instinctive, a movement that acts as both a protective response and as an immediate search for contact. Doctors actually use it as a clinical test because its presence is a good sign that the nervous system is functioning properly. It appears at birth and gradually disappears between 3 and 5 months. So if your baby does this, no need to worry. It's completely normal and even reassuring. But that's not the only thing. Babies also have an incredibly strong grip for their size. Their palmar grasp reflex is so powerful that they can sometimes support their entire body weight, basically one step away from doing pull-ups like tiny bodybuilders. This strength helps them hold on and avoid falling. But if they suddenly find themselves in a completely different environment where there's nothing left to grab onto, their body switches to a whole different survival mode, one that activates instantly in the water. You've probably seen videos like this before. A baby is placed in water, and somehow, almost like magic, they manage to turn, kick, keep their head above the surface, and even float. It almost looks unreal, but it's not. From birth, babies have what's called an immersion reflex, also known as the apnea reflex. The moment their face touches water, their airways automatically close. Their breathing stops, and their heart rate slows down to conserve oxygen. Almost like their body already knows how to avoid drowning. And that's not all. This is combined with another reflex, the swimming reflex. When placed on their stomach, babies instinctively start making coordinated movements with their arms and legs, as if they already knew how to swim. Together, these reflexes form a real emergency survival system in case of accidental immersion, which is, honestly, incredible, but also, in a way, completely logical. Because during the first months of life, water isn't entirely unfamiliar. For 9 months, babies develop an amniotic fluid. So, in a sense, water is already part of their sensory memory. And that's exactly why baby swim sessions are so popular with parents. They help extend that sense of familiarity while also creating a special bonding moment. But there's something important to keep in mind. These abilities require caution. Even though they can be reinforced, they naturally fade during the first year, and more importantly, they don't guarantee safety. These reflexes are emergency mechanisms, not superpowers. That's why professionals strongly recommend supervised sessions when introducing babies to water. And maybe a couple of ridiculously cute floaties to enjoy the pool in peace. While working on this video and learning all of this, I had a slightly weird thought. What if we could actually use these biological mechanisms? For example, that molecule we talked about earlier, hexadecanal, the one that directly influences our behaviors. What if we turned it into a spray for men with anger issues? Just a quick spray before a meeting, to avoid snapping at your boss over the smallest comment. Well, I looked into it, and scientifically speaking, it's impossible. Hexadecanal is an extremely unstable molecule. In laboratory conditions, it has to be stored below -80 degrees Celsius or kept in a controlled atmosphere, otherwise it oxidizes as soon as it comes into contact with air. So in a regular spray, it would lose its effect instantly. And let's be honest, a product that calms men but makes every woman around them suddenly furious, yeah, probably not the best idea. So yeah, behind their apparent fragility, babies are actually packed with incredible evolutionary and biological mechanisms. The next time you look at a newborn, just remember, you're looking at a tiny little marvel of nature. And you used to be one too. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe so you don't miss the next ones, and let me know in the comments which mechanism surprised you the most. See you in the next one.